for some of the people that where he talks about we're 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Yes. Now, if you get a chance, look up the word seemingly when you get home. You can dictionary, because it's really important in a way, because one of its meanings is it appears to be true or false to you. Yeah. In other words, it's the condition they're talking about isn't a real condition other than what you give it, what you make it, yeah? So something can seem to be a problem on Monday when you're not in good condition. The next day it seems not to be a problem when you're in good condition. And then the next day it seems to be a problem when you're not in good condition, yes? So what is it? Is it a problem or not a problem? Monday, it's a problem. You're not feeling good. Let's say you're sick, and so you're a little depressed, and your perceptions get skewed. You start thinking people are fucking with you and all like that. So then that day, something's a problem. The next day, you feel better. You're feeling pretty healthy. You've been to a meeting. You worked with somebody. Your mind's a little more open. The next day, that thing that was a problem isn't a problem. Then the next day, yeah, you eat like a pound of Agudas or something at night. You watch 3 lousy movies and you're a little hungover, and then the next day it's a problem again. What is it? A problem or isn't it a problem? In a sense, it's whatever you see it as, yeah? So you give everything the meaning it has. You and I, as this, give everything the meaning it has. In other words, the thing doesn't really have a meaning in and of itself. We give it a meaning. Yes? So it says, we're 100 men and women who have who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. If it was a hopeless state of mind and body, there'd be no recovery. Yeah? There would be no solution. If it was a hopeless state of mind and body, it would be hopeless. That's it. There wouldn't be any opportunity to be anything other than that. But it isn't a hopeless state of mind and body because people recover from it. So it's seemingly hopeless, yeah? When you're out there, it seems to be hopeless. So you're just going to keep getting freaking loaded until something really happens to you. But it isn't hopeless truly, but it seems to be hopeless. Just like if you have a situation, it seems to be hopeless, and your reaction is that it's hopeless, but the solution is it's seeming to be hopeless. If the mind could change, then how you see it would change. Yeah, this is a key. If your mind changes, your world changes. It does. And what I believe AA is really not a program to produce a spiritual condition, because I believe we are one. It's a program to diminish a mental condition. Yeah, it diminishes the obsession with self, which is a mental condition. Yeah. And in that diminishing, something that was there becomes obvious in your life. If it's not obvious in your life, it doesn't matter if it's always there or not, because it's not having an influence in how you travel. Just like it says when I was growing up as a Catholic, they always had these 3 qualities of God. It's omnipotent, meaning it's all powerful; omniscient, it's all knowing; and omnipresent, it's everywhere. Then why the hell aren't you feeling it? Yeah. Why the hell aren't we contacting that feeling if it's everywhere? Well, let's say, so are we going to say it's not everywhere? No, I would say there's something that's eclipsing it, yeah? Which is a mental obsession. So when the mental obsession is extreme, you're not going to be able to sense the presence of, let's say, spirit. Because they don't mix. They're like water and oil, yes? A spiritual condition in the mental condition is a conceptual condition. You think you're spiritual. Yeah? It's much different than realizing you're spiritual. Yeah? Because if you think you're spiritual, you're probably going to try to convince others that you're spiritual by convincing them that they're not spiritual enough. And they're going to retaliate. They're not going to particularly like you stepping on their spiritual toes. So seemingly, just check it out, because it's telling me that what I used to think was solid isn't so solid. Yeah, So let's say you have a Mercedes, and so in our conditioning, it would represent some prestige, yes? Or, hey, that's a cool car, maybe it'll be a chick magnet or whatever, yeah? But if an Aboriginal saw it, it would be looking at it as a place to sleep. It would kick all the windows out. It wouldn't have any prestige involved in it, yeah? It's giving it a whole different meaning than we would give it. Yeah? Now, there's the thing, it's a car, but to him, it wouldn't even go there. It would look like a house. To us, it's a car. That's enough. We add an idea. It's a Mercedes, and then what does that mean? Yes, and then it means I'm better than the guy driving a Pinto. And there's a meaning is added onto it, added onto it, added onto it, added onto it. And so therefore, you don't even see it as a car anymore. Yeah, and even if you see it as a car, you also give it a meaning that it's your car. That you're the owner of the car, that you're the haver of the car. So all day, we're given tons of meaning to everything. That's what happens here. That's why it's called a subjective experience. In other words, when you and I look at the same thing, we may have a different experience of it. Yeah? Not based on the thing, because the thing isn't changing into 8,000 different things, but the mind that's seeing it is giving it a different meaning. So it's nice to realize how powerful you actually are. Yeah? That all day. So when you think you have a problem, maybe question it. Yeah? Maybe question the one who has the problem. Because if it's not you that's having the problem will look different to you. Yeah? I'm telling you. If this is it, in the big book of AA, they have it on page 63, 64. They say it very clearly. They say, being convinced, which means to believe with certainty, the word convinced, yes? Being convinced that self manifested in various ways. Yeah? So it manifests in a lot of different ways, because it's not a thing. Yeah? It's a possibility. So it takes many forms, because it doesn't have a form. If it had a form, it would be stuck with that form. But it doesn't have a form, so it takes many forms. Yes? It doesn't have a form. There isn't a thing called a self. It's an idea. So there's the self, and that idea is manifesting in various ways. Yeah? That is what has defeated us. So being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Period. All right. Being convinced that self. All right. So when I look back at my life, I saw that self is what has defeated me. And when I'd go to an AA meeting and everyone would answer what self defeated them, we all had the same answer. Myself. M-Y. Yes? So it's actually not self that defeats us. It needs the ability to defeat us. And that ability is provided by the my. Believing it's yours, self, that's how it defeats us. Yes? Simple as fucking that. I'm telling you. As soon as that bridge is made, the traffic, it goes on incessantly. Yes? Yeah. So if everyone here would answer, if they've been in AA, they would probably say myself. Yeah? They wouldn't say the self defeated me, it would be my. It's much more intimate. Let's say intimate. It feels like it. It feels like it's me. It's driving me crazy. All that stuff. Yeah? We're just questioning that my. If that my isn't true, if it isn't yourself, then you could possibly lose interest in it. Yeah? Just like if someone comes over my house and starts talking about their self and how it's defeating them, I'm bored as hell quickly. Literally. Because it's actually not happening. They're talking about something that's not going on right now. So I'm bored quickly. But the same situation may be happening in here, and it's held as it's about me or it's mine, and then I'm wrapped in attention to it. I'm seeing it as the Greek oracle. I'm going to mine some incredibly good nuggets out of all this thinking. Yes? See the difference? If it wasn't me, you'd probably have an immunity to it. But if it's you, you don't have any immunity to it. If it's me, I don't have any immunity to it. If it isn't me, there's a possibility of having immunity to it. Because self cannot get out of self. It's a statement we use in AA quite a lot. Self can't get out of self. So let's say if we all signed up today for a 2-year course on getting out of the obsession with self, that could be construed as obsession with self. Yeah? Yeah? If I start studying about self, and I'm studying about self from self, that's self trying to get out of self. That's why it isn't successful. It doesn't work. That's why it says in the book that self-knowledge will avail us nothing. Yeah? It's not saying knowledge will avail us nothing, but any knowledge claimed by the idea of being a self is going to be neutered. It's not going to lead you to freedom from self. The best it can do is you'll have the hope it's going to lead you to freedom as a self, which never happens. So I was in AA for about 9-10 years, and I was doing 4-step workshops all around the countries, other countries too. So I was always reading how it works and sharing from how it works. And then I heard this message from an outside source that, hey, bro, you may not be that. You may not be... So I was looking for another form of meditation to practice, yeah? Like a turbocharged form or something. Super extreme meditation. So I hung off of a cliff, hoping it would shake me up a little more. And then the person says, hey, bro, why not ask who's the meditator, you know? Who is it that needs to meditate so badly? If it isn't you, you may not need to meditate so badly. It's just that simple. The situation that you're in is predicated on who's in it. The situation that you're in is predicated by who's in it. That we are the biggest influence in every situation. Yeah, it's like an axiom in physics where it says the greatest influence of any experiment is the observer of it. Yeah? So the greatest influence in any situation is the one who thinks they're in it. Yeah? I love this message because my mind is unfettered. It's just free-range alcoholism. Yeah. I never get tired of it because it's very, very exciting to be free from that fucking thing. Yeah? I mean, I was in that irritability, restlessness, and discontent just became a real dominant influence since I've been about 6, I'd say. 5 or 6 when they sent me to school. And man, I was just dying from it until I found alcohol. And actually, alcohol was my first solution to alcoholism. You know, when I drank, I got a little relief from alcoholism. But it was just a little relief, and the consequences I had to pay for that relief had a life of their own, you know. My experience was I had magnetic appeal to people in uniform. When I drink, I get arrested. And it started at a young age, and it continued to the day I got sober. You know? But the thing is, society wasn't giving me any substitute. They were just threatening punishment. They say, if you fucking get loaded again, you're going to go away longer. But the alcoholic of my type is I'm willing to pay any consequence tomorrow not to feel uncomfortable now. And I felt uncomfortable with untreated alcoholism. And the imperative was to get relief from that. And I only knew one basic way that seemed to work, at least temporarily, and that was alcohol and drug intake. And so, no matter what they did, no matter what happened, no matter how repentant I was, in a few days I was right back at the same thing, over and over and over again. Until one day I was in a trailer park, past the point of being washed up. I was totally pitiful, incomprehensibly demoralized. I just spent 2 years in a drug and alcohol program, 2 years in Delancey Street. I think they have one in the city, but they have one in San Francisco too. And they told me that my life was going to get better. And I had a strong suspicion they were wrong. And it turned out to be true. Because as soon as I got out of their control, that irritability, restlessness, and discontent really came up strongly. And the head ran an advertisement saying what I'd been missing for the last 2 years. And it wasn't a truthful ad, you know. It was making it seem romantic, all those lovely jaunts with my heroin junkie friends. So I bought it. I went to a bar. I had a beer, and that was it. Went on a 10-month run. And then I washed up on the shores of AA. And you know what happened? And that day before I went to the first meeting, I had what they call that moment of clarity. I don't know what you call it, but what provoked me coming into AA wasn't a bottom. I'd already lived on so many bottoms. I mean, I'd call it home and invite you over. The problem was I kept getting evicted from the bottom and getting sent to another bottom. And I just didn't believe I didn't think there was a low enough point to stop me, really. I could adapt to every situation. If my right arm was bleeding, I just looked this way. You know what I mean? I swear to God, I just tried to avoid fucking everything. And I was sitting in this trailer park with this guy I didn't know. I always like to talk about this. And we were drinking a bottle of Royal Gate vodka. You ever hear of Royal Gate? You probably have a matching thing over here, like 80 cents a pint or something, vodka. Pretty cheap, yeah? And I always like to mention this because I've seen their bottles since then, and their customer service is incredible. They realize their clientele and they switch from glass to plastic. Because when you used to drop the glass, that would be your night. Now it bounces back up. You know? Very good move by their marketing department. But we were drinking this shitty stuff, waiting for a mutual friend. Hopefully he'd have money to get drugs, you know. And I was just sitting there. I had pretty much settled in that I was just trying to skirt institution jails and death, basically. Just, you know. I wasn't parked there at that point, and I was just trying to get as high as I could because I expected I was going to be parking in front of one of those doors soon. Yeah. And then what happened is my mind stopped. Yeah. It was incredible. Where the alcoholism applies its glue for the bondage of self, which is, I think, the daily narrative, you know, the voice in your head. It sounds like your voice only because you're identified with this body, but it's got your voice on it. And it's like a radio station, like K-Paul, you know. It's constantly playing golden oldies and, you know, telling you, oh, those motherfuckers, everyone's out to get me that thing. Well, that thing got shut down for a couple of minutes. Yeah? It was incredible. I didn't think it was possible, really. But it happened. My mind was in a pause that I hadn't seen, been since I don't know when. But something pushed the pause button, and stopped it. And you know what happened? Some information downloaded. And the information was like a CNN news flash. Not a big story, but the news flash was, you're fucked, And you know what? I knew I was fucked, but I really felt it this time, It really hit home. And that muscle of denial, like Arnie Schwarzenegger's arms, let loose, and the reality dropped in. And I got up, didn't have another drink, and haven't had one since. And I went to the phone book, called up the program I'd been in. They didn't want to take me back. And then what happened is I called up a woman. She came and picked me up, and then she made a deal for me. If you want a place to stay tonight, you got to go to a meeting. So that's why I went to my first AA meeting 24 years ago. And that little bit, that download has provided a solution that's been thriving for 24 years. Can you imagine if you opened up to that? From whence that came? I can imagine, because I did, in a sense. And you will know a peace that passeth understanding. Yeah? You will have that state of not fighting anyone or anything, and being placed in a position of neutrality with no thought or effort on our part. The problem will not exist for you anymore. A day at a time. That's a damn good solution, yes? And what occurred was AA provided a diagnosis of the disease. And it's sort of like if you had a rash and you didn't know what it was, and then you read a book and it told you what the rash was and said, well, here's some ointment. Now, I put ointment on, and the fact is, once none of them seemed to work, but when I put this one ointment on, it worked. It's good to read what the ointment is for, because that's how you realize the problem. Oh, it's for psoriasis. So I had psoriasis, yes? So when you get relief from alcoholism, you can actually see you had alcoholism. Yeah. But the thing is, if you misdiagnose yourself, if you believe it's a cold and you actually have a flu, it doesn't matter how much cold medicine you take or how religiously you take it, it's not going to produce a very long-lasting relief. I mean, colds and flus have some symptoms, the same, but not all. Yeah? So this, for me, was just a further diagnosis of the root of the problem when I got this download when I was 10 years sober. And the diagnosis was that it is an obsession with self. The obsession with self is what the mind does when it's identified as self. It has to keep obsessing over it to keep the identification in place. Because it's like trying to bond water and oil, thing to no thing. Yeah? So it needs a strong glue, but it needs to have it applied all the time. And that's the language in one's head. Yeah? Just like they say in research, a baby doesn't have a sense of self until around 18 months. Yeah? And it usually coincides with the language center firing. So as soon as we're indoctrinated to language, which is a subjective language used by objects, this is an object, that language wrapping around the thoughts or being like the container or the cover of the thoughts is what induces the daily trance. Yeah? Because you can't see them as thoughts, you hold them as yours. You believe you're the doer of them. You can't see a feeling as a feeling, you think it's your feeling. And you've had it before and you're afraid maybe you'll have it again. You just put it simply. Put money up there. Put health there. Put, let's say, relationships there. If everyone would give a meaning to those words. You want to add weight to them? Put my in front of it. My money. My health. My sex. Hugely different, isn't it? Sort of like a thought weighs an ounce, let's say. You have 1,000 thoughts you're aware of during the day. So you're used to traveling with 1,000 ounces, yeah? You don't even feel it when you're so used to it. You're walking up mountains. You think it's normal, so you can't entertain the possibility. Yeah, I can travel lighter, yeah? Well, that's all right. So there's the thoughts. Now you add the word my. Now each thought weighs a pound. Now you're walking around with 1,000 pounds in your head. You're going to be fucking traveling heavy. And you know what? When you're traveling heavy, you're going to look for relief. Yeah? And that relief, until it's found, is going to be the imperative. No matter how civilized you are, no matter how someone says you can't do that anymore, no matter how it's explained to you, it's not wise, the imperative is I need relief. It's like a blinking light that doesn't go off until you get the relief. It's just going to keep blinking. Yes? You can paste over it, you can try to deny it, you can philosophize about it, but basically it's emanating and there's this drive of seeking. Yes? You're not at peace, you're looking all the time for relief. Yeah? What's the real solution to dissatisfaction? It's satisfaction. Not a satisfaction that feeds the dissatisfaction, but a satisfaction that is, quote-unquote, the solution to the dissatisfaction. Yes? We try to find satisfaction that only feeds the dissatisfaction. That's what addiction is, isn't it? I was really satisfied when I shot a hit of coke. But then dissatisfaction arose in 5 minutes and I had to do another shot of coke. So every time I got satisfied, more dissatisfaction was built. That's addiction. Yeah? And that's what the mind's in already. The mind is addicted to the idea of being a self. Every time he gets a stroke and feels, oh, I did. Yeah? There's more dissatisfaction. The more it gets, the more it wants. There is no peace in it. So it says, hey, what we need is a spiritual condition. And then if that spiritual condition is maintained, we'll have a daily reprieve from alcoholism. Yeah? Okay, that sounds great to me. But if a mental condition is trying to become spiritual, good fucking luck. But if I'm not the mental condition, you may find yourself to be spirit. Yes? If you're not the mental condition, if you're not this freaking holographic picture of you, comprised of the past, comprised of old ideas and beliefs, comprised of the possibilities of a future that hasn't occurred, yes? If you're not that, you may be that which you need to be. Yeah. You may be that which you're trying to find. You may be what you're looking for. You, exactly. You may be the secret ingredient to your own life. I found it to be true. So the mental condition diminishes by doing the steps and by getting out of self, by doing service, yes? Keeping commitments. All of those things weaken the mental condition, and so then another condition gets stronger. It isn't like it gets stronger, it gets obvious. That's all. Something that wasn't obvious to you becomes obvious to you, and then its obviousness you realize is what was lacking. When you sense that spiritual quote-unquote condition, you realize that's what was lacking. It's a perfect, therefore that, yeah? So you see, that was the problem. You know the problem from the solution. You know that it was identification as self because you've been relieved of it. And you see how far-reaching this identification of self's influence is in. It influences everything. And you never question it. It goes into your relationships. When it shows up, it's me. It goes into your money. That's me again. It brings some crazy ideas about the future. But it's me. You never check its papers. It walks into every aspect of your life and comments on it, critiques it, and speculates and plays God. It says it so clearly. The biggest concept of AA is the third step, right? Turning your will and your life over to the care of a higher power. But and you have to see the 12 steps are linear, yes? You can't do step 8 before step 1. So let's say when you come in and you're at step 1 and you're worried about step 9, I'm never going to be able to do step 9, but if you just do the next 7 steps, you'll be ready to do step 9 when you arrive. But you're not ready to do it when you first come in, because you have to go through the steps. Yes? So it's a linear thing. So in this case, it says it right in the book. It says, first off, you got to quit playing God. It doesn't work. Then it goes next in this drama of life. God is going to be the director. We're going to be its servants. So you got to put the horse before the cart. The horse is playing God. That's what selfing is doing. That's the activity of the disease in our lives. We may not be drinking and using today, but the selfing is playing God like fucking crazy. Yeah? Playing God. Quit playing God. The beautiful thing is, you can't quit playing God. That would be playing God. So you just admit, I'm not that which is playing God, and that's how you quit playing God. I'm not that which is playing God. If you try to stop playing God with playing God, it's just going to go on and on and on and on and on. That's why, you are the problem. So if you leave here, the problem will seem to appear wherever you go. I used to go to Thailand. In 3 days, it looked like Staten Island. Nothing fucking worked. Because it doesn't say we're people with problems. It says we are the problem. And if you are the problem, then there is no solution. The solution is you are the problem, and actually you're not the problem. The problem is you're identified with the problem, and therefore it can be broken, that identification. Yeah? It's sort of like if I had a tumor, a big tumor here, and I took it to be me. So then instead of just having an operation, I started going to tailors, and they make new shirts so I could, form around the big tumor. Maybe level it off so I can use it as an armrest while I'm driving. Put a little beer there or whatever. And then someone finally says, why don't you fucking just get an operation? What? Yeah, that's not you. It's a tumor. What? And then the thing is, you probably won't rush in to get the operation because you think, I got all those shirts. I'm not wasting that money. I'm going to live with the tumor. That's what happens. We're invested with the way we are. We're not willing to let go of it. We're invested in it. We've spent so much time listening to this thing, it seems like it would be a crime if we would just walk away. So here, there's a really good example that you can use with the inventory process, okay? So it says, self, being convinced of self, that self manifests in all these ways is what has defeated us. Let's look at its common manifestations, yeah? The next paragraph says resentment. So if you put it together, resentment is an expression or a manifestation of self, yeah? Bill W. made it very clear, self manifested in various ways is what defeated us. It'd be nice to know what us is. because it's not self. Yeah? Self manifests in always a way it defeats us. When we're convinced of that, let's look at its common manifestations. Which is the first one? The next paragraph, resentment. So really, I believe you can look at it this way, that resentment is a manifestation of self in one's life. How is it getting, how are there so many resentments in my life? There must be a lot of self in my life, yeah? So let's say, okay, there's a guy who has a really nice house and a beautiful lawn. I haven't done this in a while. And I like this one. So he has this beautiful lawn, and he usually runs around with no shoes on in the morning dew, and he does little angels in there, and he has he plays lawn whatever that's called, croquet, and he invites people over, has bands there, picnics. It's a large part of his life. It's really enriching him. And then one day he jumps off to run around in the morning dew, and he lands in some shit, dog shit, yeah? So he steps back and he steps into some more shit. So he jumps on the porch, cleans his feet off, and his life already gets smaller. He's got to wear shoes now. Yeah? That possibility of running around is not a possibility anymore. So then the next morning he jumps out and he makes sure he misses those 2 loads of shit, and he steps in another shit. So he gets in the porch and he does what an alcoholic would do. He just closes the door, pulls the blinds, and just forgets about it. Then he goes out and there's more shit everywhere. He comes in, he just closes the blinds, and now he starts going to stores buying pictures of lawns. Yeah? He puts lawns up and he reminisces. It was great when I had the lawn. He cancels all its picnics and stuff. And now his whole life is being defined by not having the lawn. And then he starts sharing with other people. He gets on a chat room. Oh, yes, I miss my lawn. Oh, yes, I do too. There's so much shit on my lawn. Mine too. And so now some guy finally shows up and he says, listen, I think I have a solution for you. And you go, all right, I'm interested in it. He says, here's a pooper scooper. Yeah? And if you get really good at it, you'll be able to at least have maybe a 2 by 5 foot piece of your lawn for your own use. Not for long, but at least for a little while. That's better. That's good enough. So you get pretty good with the pooper scooper, and you have about an hour, and then as soon as you stop pooper scooping, there's more shit. So you get 2 of them, and you're really good, and people are hearing about you, and you're starting, people are starting calling you, and you become like a circuit speaker about how to get the shit off your lawns. And you got autographed models, you know what I mean, like pooper scoopers, and you're having a good business, and things are going well. You don't have the use of your lawn, but it's like an industry now. Yeah? And so some guy comes in and says, hey, I think I have a solution for you. So I have no problems. He says, all the shit on your lawn. Hey, what? I'm a great speaker. I'm on the circuit. I'm a lecturer. I've written books about shit on lawns. What the fuck? I have no problem. He says, well, if you ever want to find out, find the dog. What? Find the dog. What? Find the dog. The shit's coming from somewhere. If you find the source of the shit, that's the end of the shit. Yeah? If you got rid of the dog, you wouldn't have to have pooper scoopers. You'd have to give up your new identity. I think you'd really be happy if you did. You know? But the problem is, you take yourself to be the dog. You can't entertain getting rid of it because you call it you. So you have to therapize it. Hopefully it behaves at the next situation. Read self-help books. But I'm telling you something that has a parasitical nature, you're never going to make it unparasitical. Alcoholism is like a parasite. It doesn't have a life, it gets one through you. It's not going to change its stripes, no matter how much you go to therapy or try to civilize it. It's a parasitical nature. It doesn't have a life, it has yours. Yes? But if it's not you, that's what happened with me. When finally I heard the message, hey, Paul, you may not be that dog, yeah? Then I could get rid of it. I could walk away and I could entertain. Hey, I can be free from that. And you know what? It's panned out pretty good. I've been living on a certain nice level of traveling lighter over the terrain of my life. It doesn't mean what's going to happen to me in life has changed. I've gotten ill and stuff, and my girlfriends have gotten cancer and shit like that. But I've traveled lighter over everything. And that's what more do you want? Instead of that irritability, restlessness as the norm, now I have an ease and comfort as the norm. Pretty sweet. So I'm in this tribe, and I try to share it because I like to see people travel lighter. I would. And I believe we all have the possibility, but we need to hear the possibility. If you don't hear the possibility, you can't entertain it. Yeah? I was entertaining this thing that self was me, and then I had an obsession over me. Yeah? I didn't know my trying to get out of that obsession was another form of obsession, me. Yeah? I didn't know that self can't get out of self. But I did know, once I realized I wasn't self, the best way to get out of something is to realize you're not in it. Yeah? If you're not self, that's the best way to seemingly escape. Because there's no need to go anywhere. Yeah? Even Staten Island won't be able to hold you down. You'll be able to break through the vortex of Staten Island and be free range, alcoholic. In Staten Island! Hallelujah! Or it may just allow you to travel lighter today. Yeah? And then the next day, 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 and then the next day. It'll go into years. And your attention will leave all the trees, and you'll sense the forest, You'll get the bigger picture of things. Your lens won't be so subjectified. It will open up more. You'll be relieved. You won't be running the gauntlet of the hallway of shit and fans, You know that hallway, right? The fan's on, the shit aligns, and then you go, what? How did that happen? That's what used to happen to me out there. I'd go out, I'd want to have fun, what I call fun, go to a bar, shoot some pool, drink, then be the coke dealer, buy some coke, and end up in the city jail by 12:30 at night. And I'd get out. The next day, I'd go out, do basically the same thing, end up in jail, and I was totally surprised it happened. How did I end up here again? Well, I did the exact same thing that got me here the night before. This is when you're totally out to lunch. When you're totally unconscious, the thing has its way with you. You have to have light in. It doesn't work well in light. It likes you to go home and think about it in the privacy of your own room. And you're just like a rabbit factory. You're just spawning problems. Thinking, I think I can think my way out of it. No fucking way. So check it out. You've been introduced to AA. It's a sound, principled way of life. This may illuminate it a little better. That's the whole point. Yeah. Illuminate it. Maybe entertained. Hey, what is that feeling of being a long-lasting, independent, separate entity? What's that feeling of Paul? You never even had it your whole life. When you were a baby, you didn't have that feeling. We grew into it. Yeah? So we can actually grow out of it. And when you grow out of it, you realize the growing into it was the root of the problem. Yeah? Because you'll have relief. And the parasite, you'll have immunity to it, so you're not taken over by it every time. After 2 years, the parasite was talking to me when I got out of Delancey Street. It was attempting to convince me, almost as if it was another person, yes? It was talking about something every possible way it could to get that irritability stirred up, yeah? Well, I've been listening from all this stuff the last 2 years, all that, yeah? But the point is, it's sort of like if you were in a stable and you were a horse, and you see a jockey, and you remember that jockey, and it wasn't a nice jockey. The last time it rode you, it wasn't so much fun. So when you see it, you're a little afraid. Like, whoa, and you're kicking it. But it's very convincing. He says, don't worry, it will be different this time. Starts petting your little head. Don't worry, it's going to be great. And then whoo, but then you let it put its leg over you. As soon as it's on you, it's not convincing you anymore. It's talking as you. There's a big line, it switches. The convincing is over, now it's talking as you. There's no debate now to go to the 7-Eleven and buy that shit. You're buying that shit. Yeah? And you're going to keep buying it until it stops. It's like you're going to keep dancing with the gorilla until it decides to stop. This is called a possession. And that's what alcoholism does. Right now, it's at bay. Yeah? But any moment, if it starts, what it does, it brings you to a point of surrender, like we talk about in AA. But this is a surrender that's usually exclaimed with the word fuck it. Yeah? It starts running an advertising about some or other. It gets one little foothold, and it's like the beach of Normandy. The whole thing comes in, the tanks, everything rolls up, and it's trying to convince you, and finally it beats you down, and you go, fuck it. And then it provides a solution. Let's get loaded. Let's sleep with our best friend's girlfriend. Let's rob that bank. Some fucking crazy idea. And once you do, because alcoholism cannot drink. It needs you to get its fuel. Yeah? You have to comply. You have to go, yeah. It can't shoot up. It needs this. This is the interface. It wants to get its fuel, but it can't get it. It's not going to go shopping. It needs you to go shopping. And it has to convince you, because for all intents and purposes, you and I should know better by now. But it has to convince us to give up. And that giving up or surrender is a fuck it. Once the fuck it is in place, it takes you over. It's in a whole nother ball game. It's like the genie's out of the bottle. Yeah? And it's very difficult to stop someone on a run. You've got to wait till they're over to maybe, share an invitation about maybe you should get sober again. While they're on that run, there's no way they're listening to you. Yeah? This is called a possession. It's a takeover. We need an immunity to that takeover. Yeah? An immunity. And it says no mental solution can do it, right? No mental defense. There's no mental defense against the first drink. What would happen if the mental condition diminished? That would be a defense. Because then let's say the spiritual dimension would be, in a sense, stronger for you. Not stronger, but for you. Yeah? And then you have an immunity to it. And then life can start building around you. It takes only 1 minute to destroy something. It takes a while to build things up. But like if you build a house, it may take months, but you could blow it up in 5 minutes, right? You may have worked hard for 18 years of sobriety. It takes one drink to just flush that down the toilet. You've got to see how things have to go on here. Destruction is much quicker than preserving, yes? So I haven't been taken over in a long time, and it is really a joy not to be ridden by that fucking thing. And I get to remember what it was like by going to meetings. And every time I listen to people, I try to follow where they're talking from. And I realize either I like what they have, or I don't like what they have. Yeah? And I have the ability now to learn from others, where I never even had the ability to learn from myself. I can learn from others now. And I go to a lot more. I go to tons of meetings now, every chance I get, and where I'm living, because I enjoy the living thing of tradition too. I think it is that there's a loving God that's expressing itself through our group conscience. Yeah. So right now, if we took each other individually, you're an asshole, 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 you're an asshole. But individually, maybe assholes, but together there's a sweet presence, yeah? Because there's a loving God that's magnifying itself through us. There's a lot of juice in AA, a lot of grace in AA, if you open up to it. There's a lot of grace. It can surmount what seems to be insurmountable. Yeah? And then if that starts occurring, when you're established in that, first you sincerely take that position of reliance on something greater than self. Because also in the fear inventory, it says it very clearly. Why are you in so much fear today? Why are you in so much fear today? And he gives us the answer. It says, isn't it because self-reliance has failed us? So this reliance on self, that system of thought and interpretation, is a failed system. Yeah? So when you are relying on it or resting on it, you're agitated. So it says, all right, perhaps there's a better way. Leaving that finite system and moving to an infinite one. Yes? That's what the steps are doing. It's taking us out of a mental condition and establishing us into a quote-unquote spiritual condition. Yeah? When that happens, then all this shit starts happening to you. You feel a new power flow in. You get to be able to enjoy peace of mind. You sense the conscious presence of this power. Yeah? And then it says on page 84, you'll cease fighting everyone, anyone, or anything, not just alcoholism. Anyone or anything. You'll be placed in a position of neutrality with no thought or effort on your part. In other words, you've put the ball down. Something else picks it up, and runs with it. And you'll be placed in this position of neutrality, and then the problem will not exist for you anymore. And I believe how it stabilizes if it doesn't exist as you. If it's not existing as you, if the identification with it's broken, then you'll have the experience it doesn't exist for you stabilized. And then you're reborn. Exactly. This is what you can expect through the steps. Through that mental condition diminishment and the spiritual amplification, that's what happens. He's always talking about effects. He talks about effects of alcoholism, and he talks about effects of the relief from alcoholism. Yeah? This is like my 12th talk in 9 days. The enthusiasm never wanes, but my body's getting fucking tired. Because I found great value in understanding. It really helped me. You ever hear of the guys Joe and Charlie, the big book seminars? They passed away, but I went to them for 3 years, my first 3 years, and that had a huge effect on me. Just these two old dudes, simple, reading the book and just explaining it in a certain way that it opened me up to getting it. Yeah, that's the same thing we're attempting here. Just attempting to put it in such simple terms that the mind can easily pick it up and entertain it. Yeah. Because no matter what you think you are, what the mind is much larger. And I have faith in that mind. That mind can entertain the possibility of being free. That mind can enjoy peace of mind. That mind has an immanent quality called faith that if it's put in the right vehicle can do miracles here. Simple as that. If you have faith in your thought system, you're going to be full of anxiety, yeah? If you believe in these thoughts going on in your head, all they provoke is anxiety about a future, about regrets of a past, and it's all shitting on the present. If you have that same faith and put into something that's reliable or infinite, then that will express itself as an ease and comfort in your day. It's the same energy, it's just what vehicle is put in. We're attempting to move the vehicle of our interest and attention from the mental condition to a quote-unquote spiritual condition. And there's a proven way to assist that, which is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and participation in its functioning. Yes? That allows you to leave a failed system and move to a system that works. And it's just like if you took a rose bush and you had it in here and you had it in a small pot with not too much soil, with no water and no light, that rose bush isn't blooming. And if it has self-centeredness, it'll be blaming itself for not blooming or envious of ones who have bloomed, or I once bloomed before. What happened to me? What did I do to make it none so? All this fucking self thing. But if you just take that rose bush out of that pot and put it in a big pot with some nice soil, some water, and some light, it blooms. It's exactly what's happening there. How could a down-and-out junkie be at peace now? If it was truly a down-and-out junkie, there would probably no possibility of being peace. I was seemingly that, and now I can seemingly be this. Yeah, how? How are you going to erase 20-something years of drug use and drinking? Yeah? You're not that. You facilitated something to express that way, called self. And now we're facilitating a power greater than self to express our way through us. So now the biggest sinner can look like a great saint because they're neither. Yeah, they're just possibilities. Open up to the possibility of the influence of the program. You know, I'm not saying you aren't, but open up to it. Maybe it is identification itself. Yeah. How do you recognize it? Well, through the word mind. Check it out. How can you, me and you, let's say you ate a burrito earlier, yeah? And you're the digester of that burrito, and you forgot. So now you have a big burrito in there, and then you forgot the pizza you had Thursday night. And then you got that bologna sandwich from Wednesday morning. I mean, you got to take the whole weekend just to go home and digest the food, yeah? It sounds funny. I'm not digesting my food. Then why do you believe you're the thinker of the thoughts? It's a process of the body and the brain. Why do you believe you're the thinker of the thoughts, but you don't believe you're the digester of the food? You don't believe you're the beater of the heart. You don't believe you're the pumper of the blood, but a much subtler activity you believe you're the thinker of. Give me a fucking break. Because these are the physical activities, and the mental one is what you claim. You claim the mental process. You claim the mental process, but you don't claim the physical process. Yeah? You claim the physical doing, but it's a mental idea that you're the doer. We're living in a freaking mental realm, and that's why there's so much fucking suffering. This is about telling the truth about that. What makes me a citizen of that place? I say it's identification as self. Find another way if you want to. But know that you'll know the tree or the solution by its fruits. If it brings you a consistent, stabilized traveling light, you're onto something. Yeah. We could go into a lot of things, you know. But a simple thing, you know, conscious contact, they usually imply it to mean how to improve your conscious contact with a higher power. But if you really look at what's happening every day, isn't it consciousness in contact? You're seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, yes? And it's obvious, like when I was younger, I had one of my uncles was really nice to me, and I was fond of him, right? And then he passed away, and my mother brought me to the funeral. And they had a wake in an open casket, so we'd walk by to say goodbye to Uncle Fred. And so when I walked by and I looked at Uncle Fred, I realized that wasn't Uncle Fred. There was a body that I was calling Uncle Fred, but something that I believe really was Uncle Fred wasn't active in that body anymore. Life had gone, right? And you could have taken the eye of Uncle Fred, if it wasn't damaged, and put it into a live body and it would see, but it was never going to see again from Uncle Fred's body. Yes? So is the eye actually seeing, or is it facilitating seeing? And what is it that is needed for seeing and hearing and feeling to happen? Consciousness, yeah? Awareness, spirit. There has to be something to move through the brain to allow it to do what it's doing through these 5 gates: sensing, feeling, tasting, touching. So it doesn't say Paul contact, it says conscious contact. So I would say what's conscious isn't Paul, but consciousness. So consciousness is in contact through this. It's very, very, well, it's a mistake in my view to claim to be the one who's conscious. It's much clearer to just realize your consciousness, in a sense, yeah? When the mental process wants to claim to be doing consciousness. But if you really look at it, the mental process comes later. First there's conscious contact, and then there's a story about it, right? First there's the conscious contact. Before there's a claiming of something, the something has to be seen. So the thought has to be seen before the mental process says, hey, it's my thought. Yeah? What light is illuminating the thought? It's not you, it's consciousness or spirit. I would say we're that. We're that which is moving through, not what it's moving through. And entertaining it was revelatory. My life shifted. And when it shifted, I realized what the problem was. The bondage of self. It's a glue applied all day by K. Paul. If you're listening to this thing, I'm telling you, it's having huge effects on what you call you. If you're hearing it, its effects are minimal. But when you're listening to it, when the hearing turns into an interest, then you're fucked. Literally. Just like a relationship. I'm having a great time with a girl, and then suddenly, one night, she becomes my girlfriend. Now I think I have the right to break her into her email and see who she's emails. Now, let's say before you drink, you have a little bit of jealousy. After you drink, you're stalking. You're up on stalking charges. You got to see what happens. The mental condition amplifies the mental condition. If you take yourself to be a mental condition, it amplifies the mental condition. It becomes the dominant state. If you minimize it, another state arises. Maybe your body gets healthier, the you gets more important, and the I gets more important, and the me dwindles. And you'll be much better for it, yes? But if you keep thinking the activity of I is done by me, that the me is what has the body, then you're in a mental state concerning spiritual and physical. You're in a mental state. You're thinking about spirit and you're thinking about a body. You have a body image, how you think you should look, and you're not recognizing the body. Yeah? Everything becomes mental. It's like, those dogs when they have mange or something, they put those little cones on. You got a similar one right there. Almost, yeah? All you need is a little bit of a customizer.
That's it.
So you're walking like this all day. It's just in your head. All day. You can't itch anything. But you got all this irritability, restless, discontent, but you just... There is a solution, bro. There is a solution. So that's it. Any questions? Oh, thank you.